Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
All things tend which compel the soul to turn her gaze towards that place. Where is the full perfection of being, which she ought, by all means, to behold? Please continue watching for an engaging philosophical dialogue between the venerated Socrates, vegetarian, and Glaucon.
I think it is so cultural. When you eat meat, our society doesn't tell us you are eating an animal. You are eating a piece of something. You don't think about the fact that you are eating bone and flesh. It's a being. It doesn't make any sense, especially these days when there are so many other options. We don't need it. Chantal Paulin, vegan.
Yeah, Sas. That means hello in Greek. I'm Dimitris. The kind people of Corfu wish you and your loved ones be always bathed in heavenly light. The venerated Socrates was born in Athens, Greece, circa 470 BC. Many people consider him to be the father of Western philosophy. Others think of him as an insightful teacher and an enlightened master. Socrates believed that an individual's main purpose on earth was to discover the truth. He stated that most people focus their lives around their families, careers, and social responsibilities, when in fact, they should be concerned about the welfare of their souls. With compassion for all life, Socrates followed and promoted a vegetarian diet. Most of the information about Socrates, his life and his philosophy, was transcribed after his departure by two of his students, Plato and Xenophon. These disciples wrote about their master in several books, in which Socrates is depicted as the main character. One of Plato's most famous and influential philosophical works is titled The Republic. It features valuable dialogues between Socrates and others, mainly on the topic of justice and also the philosopher's journey to acquiring higher knowledge. Today, we will read an excerpt from Plato's book The Republic, with a dialogue between the philosopher Socrates and Glaucon, where they discuss intellect, science, and understanding, the opinion of belief, and the perception of shadow. What knowledge will lead us to the real truth? Socrates said, as being is to becoming, so is pure intellect to opinion. And as intellect is to opinion, so is science to belief, and understanding to the perception of shadows. Socrates says, arithmetic has a very great and elevating effect, compelling the soul to reason about abstract numbers and rebelling against the introduction of visible or tangible objects into the argument. You know how steadily the masters of the art repel and ridicule anyone who attempts to divide absolute unity when he is calculating, and if you divide, they multiply, taking care that one shall continue on and not become lost in fractions. Now suppose a person were to say to them, "Oh, my friends, what are these wonderful numbers about which you are reasoning, in which, as you say, there is a unity such as you demand, and each unit is equal, invariable, indivisible?" What would they answer? They would answer, as I should conceive, that they were speaking of those numbers which can only be realized in thought. Then you see that this knowledge may be truly called necessary, necessitating, as it clearly does the use of the pure intelligence in the attainment of pure truth. And have you further observed that those who have a natural talent for calculation are generally quick at every other kind of knowledge, and even the less sharp if they have had an arithmetical training, although they may derive no other advantage from it, always become much quicker than they would otherwise have been? Very true, he, Glaucon, said. And next, Shall we inquire whether the kindred science also concerns us, said Socrates. You mean geometry? Glaucon asked. Exactly so, said Socrates. The question relates rather to the greater and more advanced part of geometry, whether that tends in any degree to make more easy the vision of the idea of good, and thither, as I was saying, all things tend which compel the soul to turn her gaze towards that place, where is the full perfection of being, which she ought by all means to behold. Glaucon then asks, then if geometry compels us to view being, it concerns us, if becoming only, it does not concern us? Answers Socrates, yes, that is what we assert. Yet anybody who has the least acquaintance with geometry will not deny that such a conception of the science is in flat contradiction to the ordinary language of geometricians. They have in view practice only, and are always speaking in a narrow and ridiculous manner, of squaring and extending and applying and the like. They confuse the necessities of geometry with those of daily life, whereas knowledge is the real object of the whole science. The knowledge at which geometry aims is knowledge of the eternal, and not of the perishing and transient. Geometry will draw the soul towards truth, and create the spirit of philosophy, and raise up that which is now unhappily allowed to fall down. Nothing will be more likely to have such an effect. Then nothing should be more sternly laid down than that the inhabitants of your fair city should by all means learn geometry. Moreover, the science has indirect effects which are not small. After plane geometry, I said, we proceeded at once to solids in revolution instead of taking solids in themselves, whereas after the second dimension, the third, which is concerned with cubes and dimensions of depth, ought to have followed. That is true, Socrates, said Glaucon, but so little seems to be known as yet about these subjects. Socrates answers, why yes, I said, and for two reasons. In the first place, no government patronizes them. This leads to a want of energy in the pursuit of them, and they are difficult. In the second place, students cannot learn them unless they have a director. But then a director can hardly be found, and even if he could, as matters now stand, the students, who are very conceited, would not attend to him. That, however, would be otherwise if the whole state became the director of these studies and gave honor to them. Then disciples would want to come, and there would be continuous and earnest search, and discoveries would be made, since even now, disregarded as they are by the world, and maimed of their fair proportions, and although none of their votaries can tell the use of them, still these studies force their way by their natural charm, and very likely, if they had the help of the state, they would someday emerge into light. Then, assuming that the science now omitted would come into existence if encouraged by the state, let us go on to astronomy, which will be fourth. The right order, Glaucon replied. For everyone, as I think, must see that astronomy compels the soul to look upwards and leads us from this world to another. Everyone but myself, Socrates said. To everyone else this may be clear, but not to me. I should rather say that those who elevate astronomy into philosophy appear to me to make us look downwards and not upwards. You have in your mind a truly sublime conception of our knowledge of the things above, and I dare say that if a person were to throw his head back and study the fretted ceiling, you would still think that his mind was the percipient and not his eyes. In my opinion, that knowledge, only which is of being and of the unseen, can make the soul look upwards, and whether a man gapes at the heavens or blinks on the ground, seeking to learn some particular of sense, I would deny that he can learn, for nothing of that sort is matter of science. His soul is looking downwards, not upwards, whether his way to knowledge is by water or by land, whether he floats or only lies on his back. The starry heaven which we behold is wrought upon a visible ground, and therefore, although the fairest and most perfect of visible things must necessarily be deemed inferior far to the true motions of absolute swiftness and absolute slowness, which are relative to each other, and carry with them that which is contained in them, in the true number and in every true figure. Now, these are to be apprehended by reason and intelligence, but not by sight.
Don't be vegan, The devils are keeping the fire going, waiting for you.
Wonderful viewers, thank you for your company on today's Pure Intelligence in the Attainment of Pure Truth from Socrates, Vegetarian, Glaucon Dialogue in The Republic by Plato, Vegetarian, Part 1 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. Please join us again tomorrow for Part 2 of this program. Coming up next is Japanese Traditional Crafts, Part 1 of 2, Kintsugi, Finding Beauty in Mending Pottery, right after Noteworthy News. May God's immense love and blessings be with you and your family always.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/WOW.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/WOW.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/WOW.
Нашите предавания предлагат много езици. Моля вижте suprememastertv.com/schedule и suprememastertv.com/WOW.